Recording. So welcome to the Chakra Way Meditation Podcast. So I'm really excited to be here today with Magic Barclay, who is a mold toxicity master practitioner, amongst many other things. And Magic is in just outside Melbourne, in Australia. So welcome, Magic. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
Yay, good. Oh, so where to start? I mean, this is something I think your topic the topic that I want to talk to you about today anyway is I think really broad and really interesting. And essentially it comes down to sort of autoimmune disorders and how we deal with toxicity in our environment, right? So what led you to become an expert in this? First of all, how did you reach this point?
Well, I guess like all practitioners, it was my own journey. So we lived in a mouldy house for 2 years. We could see black mould everywhere. And we kept telling the agent and the landlord, because we were renting. And, when we moved in, there were curtains in the front rooms. And I said, oh, look, the bottom of those are black with mould. So what they did was they just removed the curtains and went, well, there's no problem now. Then there was, like a black ring around where the carpets met the walls at the baseboards. And on one of the inspections, I said, look, that's mould and it's in nearly every single room. What are we going to do about this? And the agent tried to tell me it's because my vacuum didn't reach the walls properly because the vacuum head was too big.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Right. Yeah.
So that was dirt. And I'm like, yeah, nah. I've put on 20 kilos since we've lived here and we're constantly sniffing and sore, itchy red eyes and, sick all the time. Like, no, it's not because of my vacuum. So, it was really that experience that threw me into studying mold and what it does. And I found out that there was, quite a few different types of mold that are dangerous, but they're not all bad. Some can be really good for us. And so we know with mold in particular that it's the great survivor. That's what it's known as. And it's used in medicine, as we know it as penicillin. It's also used in warfare, and it's used in germ warfare in particular. Why? Because it cloaks everything else. So you mentioned autoimmune and immune responses. Well, there's several levels of immune types, and none of them can do their functions or work properly if you have mold toxicity, because it's like putting a lead blanket on everything and it says, no, I'm surviving. And you know what? Here's the thing about toxic molds. They don't care if you're still alive. So say you get a parasite or something, that needs the host, you, to be alive. Yeah. So it will make you really sick. It'll take you to the brink, but you'll get a bit better and you'll learn to live with it. Well, you shouldn't have to, but that's what we do quite often. Mold doesn't care. And so when I'm talking to my clients, they're like, give me an example of that. And an example is a basket of apples. One has a little nick in it. Sometimes we put our hands in at the market and we're picking them up. We might spike our fingernail on one, just give it a little indent. Well, that's enough to cause mold to start to form on the surface. Now, if you leave that damaged apple in a basket of beautiful, clean, healthy-looking apples for too long, that apple will disappear. It will actually disintegrate and turn into dust, and all the others will be moldy. So that's what mold does to us. And so when I learned this, I was like, that explains so much of why I couldn't get out of the autoimmune cycle, because my immune system couldn't function due to mold toxicity. Long answer to your question, but very important one.
It's really interesting. And the one sort of side of it that I wanted to sort of, when I started thinking about this interview and what I wanted to know about this, was because, like a lot of people, I've recently watched that program on Netflix called Fantastic Fungi, or Fungi, depending on how you want to say it, which is a fascinating program. I recommend it to everybody because it's great. But what is the difference between, because fungi and mold are in the same family, right? And obviously we know that there are some mushrooms that are really toxic and really bad for you, and others that are beautiful and have incredible health benefits. And we know that the root system of mushrooms and mold and fungi are underneath the ground, and without it, the earth doesn't survive. You know, it's what breaks everything down and creates earth, which sustains us, etc. So, I mean, I guess I've answered my own question there, haven't I? There are some good
No,
mushrooms.
not really. Not really. So you're
Okay.
almost there. You're almost there. There is a very cool link between fungi and mold, but they are not the same thing.
Okay. And in what respect are they different? I mean, I suppose quite a plain, simple one, in that fungi are mycorrhizals and molds are a different type of organism. Is that right?
Yeah. So look, they both spore and they both love wet, damp, warm conditions. That they have in common.
Right.
Fungi, as you said, can be beneficial. Some can be harmful. One that we all know of in the health arena is Candida. That's a fungus. Okay, and that can cause a lot of problems in the body, but it is still different to mold. So without getting too technical here, you know, there's a very slight difference, but it's still a difference.
Yeah.
Mold is much smaller. The spores are much smaller. They're more microscopic. They spread a lot more easily. Fungus needs to feed off the host, which could be a piece of wood. It could
Right.
be a person. It could be food. It could be
Yeah.
anything. Mold needs to feed off the host. Again, it could be anything, but more often than not, mold goes for a living host, whereas fungus can grow from, like I said, a piece of wood
Yeah.
or something like that. Mold.
Sorry, go on.
No, that's all right. Mold will use something living to, I guess, escape and spore to another area. Fungus doesn't travel like that.
Right. Okay. So how does mold affect the body?
Wow. There's a laundry list of symptoms. Pretty much anything that you can think of that just doesn't go away could be mold. And so, like I said, itchy eyes, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you're like scratching your eyes and they feel like there's sandpaper in them and they're dry, or they could be watering and still feel like sandpaper. It could be that kind of nasal drip sniffiness that you get in the morning. You know, you wake up and you've got to blow your nose 5 times. That could be mold. It could be not being able to sleep. And, you know, we put that down to cortisol, but guess what? Cortisol can ramp up due to mold toxicity. So that could be behind it. It could be looking like rashes on your arms, or it could even look like white spots on your arms. So one question on our root cause analysis intake is, do you have any white spots on your skin? And people think they're sunspots, but they could be from mold.
Wow.
Yeah. Another thing could be light sensitivity, noise sensitivity. And so when I was living in this house full of black mold, I would be traveling to another state here in Australia for conferences all the time. And the fellow that ran these conferences, you know, he was a hype man. He'd hype up the room. And when people started cheering and dancing and yelling, I would be in tears and I would have to exit the room. And I did not understand why. It was like someone was putting my head in a mincer. And that was mold toxicity. So you can be very sensitive to light, to smell. You can walk past a perfume or a food or even an essential oil and just all of a sudden feel very unwell. You can have multiple chemical sensitivities with mold. So you could eat something and it makes you unwell, smell something, as I said. It could even be like different types of light. Some people are very light sensitive. Other people can be dark sensitive. So there's, like I said, a laundry list of symptoms that mold toxicity can present as.
And you can be, I mean, I suppose, obviously the effects of mold can affect anybody. So a healthy, normal, perfectly well person could start living as you did in a moldy environment and start to feel these horrible effects. And I'm guessing that there are also people who have a lower tolerance to mold as well. And is that because they've sort of been exposed to mold toxicity before, and it's lowered their immune, or why would one person in particular be less tolerant of mold than somebody else?
Yeah, look, they may have an autoimmune. They may have been pre-exposed to mold. But here's the thing about mold. As I said before, it travels. That's what distinguishes it from anything else. It doesn't need you anymore once it's done its thing. As opposed to other decomposers, they can travel a certain amount. Mold can travel a long time. So what we see in people, particularly in clients that come into our clinic, is they'll say, oh yeah, but I took that bit of plaster off the wall and I fixed it and I fixed the leak and then I painted it and I bleached it and I did everything. It was great. Okay, you're still there. Your furnishings are still there. So the mold is still there because it travels in you. I've had clients say to me, yes, I was in a moldy house and I knew it was making me sick. So we left the house, we sold it, and we moved to another one. But I've still got these symptoms. And I'll say, yep, that's because it's in you.
Ooh,
Yeah.
horrible, isn't it? So, I mean, it's when we're feeling the effects of this, it's affecting our immune system, right? So, I'm guessing the long-term sort of effect of being exposed to mold is immune disorders. Yeah.
Totally. But that's not the only effect it has. So mold actually pulls the strings in our limbic center of our brain, which is the center, the middle part of our brain. And it's the center of where we form emotions and feelings. So people with mold toxicity can feel like, driving down a street and all of a sudden they have to cry. Or they remember something and all of a sudden they're just like disintegrated into feelings, good or bad. They could just start laughing randomly. They could start crying randomly. They might even feel some phantom pain because it really pulls the strings in the limbic center of our brain. So when something's happening to us and we're exposed to mold toxicity, our reflexes or our emotional reactions can be like far exaggerated to what they should be, or they could be very dull to what they should be.
Yeah.
And I actually had a client come to me. She was on the dull side and someone had died in her family. And she said, I don't know what's wrong with me. When I heard the news, I had no reaction. And then I went to comfort my family and they were all crying and I had nothing. I felt nothing. And I'm really close to the person that passed away. And it was because of her mold toxicity. She was just numb.
I mean, what you're describing to me in an energetic term, because obviously I always come at everything from that energetic side, from looking at our energy centers, our chakras, and so on. We're talking about this mold actually really affecting our energetic body. When it affects mood and it affects energy and it affects the way that you're the messaging in your brain, that's really impactful. That's a huge impact on the whole body, not just the physical body, but your energetic body as well, to be numb from feeling or to have these exaggerated, unexpected feelings. God, that could really, really mess you up because I suppose the people who come to you are the lucky ones because they've worked out that there's a common thread between what's going on for them and mold. And I'm imagining that there's some people who are going through this going, I have no idea why I'm feeling this way, why my body's reacting this way. and they go to the doctor, and the doctor gives them, I don't know, sort of antihistamine or something, and that's not going to do anything, is it? So how are
No,
you?
and
Go on.
we have an extremely long intake form. It's about 33 pages at last count. There's a
Wow.
lot in it. And, don't panic, people. It's okay. Sit down with a cup of tea. You'll be fine. And there's quite a few questions in there. There is one that says, flat out, have you lived or been exposed in a moldy environment, house, office, whatever. But there's a lot of other questions there that tell me someone's got mold toxicity. And so sometimes they're not coming to me for that. And they'll say, oh, I tried this and I tried that, and then this happened. And I look at their historical health timeline that I get from them, and I go, okay, that house that you were in when you were 8 for 2 years, that's when all this stuff started triggering off. That was a moldy house, wasn't it? And I'll go, actually, yeah, it was. It was always damp. It was like, had that musty smell. It was an old house. Didn't think anything of it. Like, well, all this time you've had that mold toxicity there. So sometimes they don't know they've got it. And I have to be the one to point it out.
Yeah. So we're exposed to mold, you have this toxicity going on, it affects the immune system, right? So people often coming to you with autoimmune disorders. So let's just sort of dial back and let's bring it down to our immune system, because this is something that's pretty important. First of all, like autoimmune disorders, what do they look like? Give me some examples of the most common ones, I suppose.
Oh my God, there's so many.
Well, the ones that are super affected by mold, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, look, some of the big ones are autoimmune thyroid disorders. So things like Hashimoto's, sometimes the opposite, which is Graves' disease. It can look like psoriasis. So people come with psoriasis, that's an autoimmune condition of a broken skin barrier, and it's just not getting better.
Yeah.
And there it is. It can look like inflammation, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. It can look like constantly sore, like an arthritis kind of pain everywhere. It can also look like allergies. So allergies that just don't quit. No matter what, you're very unwell. And, one of the most common allergies when we're talking mold is penicillin, which is a mold, as I said. So people that are anaphylactic allergic to penicillin often have a mold toxicity issue.
Oh, wow. Gosh, see, I mean, when you list out the autoimmune disorders that you just have done, it's you can see, that's affecting so many people that, I mean, I know almost somebody for every symptom that you've just, I know someone who's got, not the same person, but lots of people who've got all of those, those problems, and they are dealing with that particular thing, whether it's chronic fatigue or psoriasis or something like that, and they're trying to deal with that in a medical way. So they're taking heinous drugs that make them feel grotty, but keep the symptoms of the autoimmune disorder at bay. So this could be like, knowing that this could be the cause is a huge deal. And I'm imagining that there are some people sitting there maybe having an aha moment going, oh my God, I suffer with X, and my house is moldy. So maybe but I can't afford to move. I can't do that. Like, so what to, because I'm imagining, like, if you live in a moldy house and you're suffering one of these things, the first thing is get the hell out of there. But if that's not possible, how do you proceed once you've kind of had that aha moment where you've realized that actually this could be a major issue, mold could be the cause of this? And also, like you say, if it's within you, you can move house and it's going to come with you. It's going to be in your furniture and your clothes and you. So Okay, let's move to some of the
No, I want to address that because that's really a great question. Rather than leaving people feel overwhelmed, we've partnered with a company here in Australia called Sanair Australia, and they have some great naturally based products that fight mold. So when people work with us, we work on your internal biome to get rid of the mold toxicity, but we also help you with wearable technology, which could be a pendant or a bracelet or, something that has certain essential oils that have been, scientifically proven to fight mold. And we can also do cleaning products, test kits. We have little kits to go into your air conditioning unit, lots of things, little pots that you can put in your car or in your cupboard. So we can help you with your environment, both internal and external. And that's been a real game changer involving the Sanair products in our treatment plans, because then you're not having to go, well, I have to leave the house. What do I do? It's coming with me.
Yeah.
We can do something to help you.
Okay. And then how do you go about, helping, I mean, I'm looking at this lovely post you got behind you, like immune reset, mold toxicity recovery. Like, what does that look like? How does that manifest in actual, like, real terms? How do you do that?
With mold toxicity, it's generally 10 weeks worth of work. So we take things step by step because it is a stealth pathogen. Okay. And so what we have to do is really help the body with certain nutrients and certain supplements that we can use. We do use essential oils a lot because they are so microscopic. They can actually cross the blood-brain barrier, so they can help you a lot.
Okay, which
We
ones?
work with your environment.
Give away some of your secrets. Tell me an essential oil that's going to help with mold. Not all of them.
Time is one of the best.
Okay.
There's a few more, but I'll give you that. Time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Is one of the best. Mold spores do not like thyme essential oil being diffused in the house.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we've got all of these little external things, and then the internal things are to do with supplements and dietary. Is that right as well? Dietary.
There are certain foods that we ask you to stay away from during mold treatments, and they're usually things that harbor mold. So we're looking at things like, sorry, I'm going to say it, chocolate, coffee.
Coffee.
They're the big two, really. And that's because they're grown in pods in very damp areas, like tropical kind of areas, and there can often be mold there. So it's not the actual cacao that's the problem. It's the way it's processed. When it's taken out of the pod, some of the mold spores go in with it. So we just ask that our clients stay away from a few things for a short amount of time, just so we can get the internal terrain happy again.
Yeah. So, but once the mold is in you, as you say, which is kind of terrifying. And when you say in you, like, is it within, like, actually within your body, or is it on the skin? Where does this mold actually reside in the body?
Both. So it can be on your skin, can be in your nasal passage because you're breathing it in.
Yeah.
It can travel around your body, but it is beatable, which is really cool.
Yeah, that it does give huge hope. And, in treating the immune system is something that the medical profession have been trying to do. And it's a pretty, I don't know, I always feel that the medical intervention is a pretty blunt instrument when it comes to treating the immune system. And so, I don't know, there are various medical interventions. Are they that are actually harmful to the immune system as well? So we've got this kind of quite blunt instrument of medical intervention trying to support and fix, if you like, an immune disorder. But then there are also medical interventions that can harm our immune system as well. So can you talk to that a little bit about, how we in general as a society, as a Western society, treat our immune systems?
Ooh,
That's quite a
okay.
big one.
Let me see how I can answer this one. It's a great question, actually. So not everything in Western medicine is bad,
Absolutely.
but a lot of it is short-sighted.
Mm.
So what we've been taught is germ theory. So the germ is the most powerful thing. Let's treat the germ and everything will be fine. What I believe in is terrain theory. Let's treat the terrain, the internal environment in our bodies, and then the germ has no place.
Mm.
That's a little bit different. So things like traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, they all look a lot at terrain theory more than germ theory. So, I'm going to say this about modern Western medicine. And if you can imagine two fish tanks, okay? So they're exactly the same. They're both cloudy and mucky, and the fish look like they're about to, start floating. Like it's not nice. They both have lots of plumbing underneath their cabinets. Okay, they've got exactly the same plants, exactly the same type of fish, exactly the same plumbing. One of them, the germ theory tank, you take the fish out and you empty the water and you scrub all the tank and, clean the plants and the gravel. And then you fill it up with clean water, do the pH, all that, and pop the fish back in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the terrain theory tank, you do all of that, but before you put the fish back in, you flush out all the plumbing underneath and you make sure that all the filters are clean, changed over, everything's hunky-dory in the bit that you don't see. Now, both tanks you put the fish back in. In the germ theory tank, the fish start to float and the tank gets yucky again. You've lost your fish. In the terrain theory tank, everything's beautiful and the fish are swimming past, saying hello to you. What is the difference? You haven't emptied all the plumbing. So in germ theory, you're treating the symptoms, you're chasing the symptoms, you're chasing the germ.
Yeah.
And in terrain theory, you're changing the environment.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do with mold toxicity.
Yeah. So it's your, not only your external environment, but your internal environment. And doing that through natural ways. And I mean, do you work in an energetic sense? Do you work with mindset in any way? Does that come into this treatment at all?
Definitely. So I work with the PNEI of trauma, which is the psychoneuroendoimmunology of trauma. So it's linking that limbic center of the brain through the nervous system, through the endocrine system, and to the immune system. And trauma doesn't have to be something that just upsets you. It can be a pathogen. It could be anything. Anything that makes the body feel unsafe is a trauma. Energetically,
Yes.
if we look at all the chakras, which you're always talking about here, we can see that any blocked energy, any blocked chakra can present different problems. So a lot of things that we see, particularly with autoimmune, with mold, with all the things that we work with in our clinic is, I'm going to give you an example because it's always my problem, the root chakra.
Mm-hmm.
When I was unwell, I felt disconnected. Not only disconnected from people around me, but disconnected from myself, disconnected from the earth. So if we're looking at the root chakra, we've all heard about grounding, right? Taking your shoes off and walking in the dirt, in the grass, on the ground.
Yeah.
Why is that so beneficial? Because it's connecting us to the vibration of the earth. It's also through our feet, we're soaking up essential minerals that we need to function in a healthy way. So this is what the root chakra is telling us is we need that energy to connect, to be grounded, to be rooted in to the earth.
Yes.
And when we look at some of the other chakras, I'm going to go up the top now to the crown. When we're looking at the PNEI of trauma, this is a problem. People seem to not dismiss, but forget that they have a higher self. They have a higher connection. And this is really important. When you are in a traumatic response, a traumatic state, and your limbic brain is, the strings being pulled by something else, be it mold, be it something else, you cannot connect to your higher self. So a lot of people will say, I just don't feel like myself. And so you say, all right, what does your self feel like? I don't know.
That's disconnected.
They're disconnected. So when we block that energy, that can then end up looking or presenting like an autoimmune of the brain. You can be forgetful. You can, be that person that walks into a room, has no idea why you've walked into the room. This is some inflammation of the brain. Why? Because the energy is stuck. And there's a great system of the body that not only transports waste, but transports energy, and that's the lymphatic system. And that travels right around the body. So it passes through and past every chakra that we have. So, an example, I'm jumping all over the place, but an example here of the lymphatic system not being happy with our energy is restless leg syndrome. When you get to bed and you feel like you've just got to keep shaking your legs because they feel buzzy and full of energy and jittery, and you just can't get to sleep. You don't know what it is. That is energy that has just been transported around and around and around because there's no outlet for it. So, we really need to look at what all of this does, because when we have energy that is circulated around and can't get out, we have waste that is circulated around and can't get out, we have thoughts, we have toxins, we have mold, we have other pathogens, what that ends up being is autoimmune.
So what is it that stops this energy and these toxins from within the lymphatic system? Because normally they would be taken to the liver, the kidneys to be processed, and we'd expel them. Yeah. So what is it that's stopping that from happening?
It could be anything. It could be trauma to the body. It could be that we don't give ourselves enough, excuse me, we don't give ourselves enough time to expel energy.
Right.
We say things to ourselves. I've done it today. Now I'm getting a frog in my throat because I went out today with some girlfriends for lunch, and, I sat there and I said, oh yeah, but, I didn't bother doing my hair today and this, that, and I kept putting myself down because I felt less than because they were all glammed up for lunch.
Yeah.
And now I'm feeling it because I didn't speak my truth. So, it's little things like that. It sounds really out there, but you know what? Our body matches everything that we do and say.
Exactly. No, this is exactly, you're right in my wheelhouse here. This is exactly, the language that we use to talk to ourselves and how we present ourselves and the energy that we bring to each situation, the energy that we allow ourselves to let go of, and the energy that we decide to hang on to for dear life. All of that, is then expressed in our physical body. And if we're not processing it, if we're not, and it can just, you've got a lovely awareness. You are aware that you did that to yourself, and now you're like, yeah, could have thought about that. Throat chakra's going, hi, Magic, can we just,
Can you just speak your truth, please?
Yeah, can we just sort of hit the authenticity button and reset again? Thank you. And that's absolutely what we all need to do, but having that awareness that we're doing that is what helps us to reset. Because if you didn't have the awareness to do that, you would have come back from your lunch, and that narrative, that internal narrative of, oh, I didn't look, they're all so glamorous and I'm so this, that would have continued. That would have just kept on going, been reset. You would have gone to sleep tonight thinking about it. woken up tomorrow looked in the mirror and gone, "Oof, shouldn't bother because didn't bother," it feeds into your energy, that feeds into your health, and I'm presuming it also feeds into your ability to fight these pathogens, fight the mold but can the body fight mold? Can the body actually fight back against a mold invasion, if you like?
Yeah, definitely. Look, with the right tools and, the right help, it definitely can. Mold doesn't have to be a death sentence. And, we've seen this with a lot of things that we do. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that we do cause more toxicity. So what we really have to do is use what comes from nature to fight mold. So, like I said, essential oils are a great way to do that. That's not the only thing that we use,
Yeah.
but, here's something that is the most pure, the most distilled from nature, because it is so potent and it is so powerful, and it conducts healthy energy, and it fights these pathogens, and it does so much beneficial stuff for us.
Yeah.
So it's multi-layered little thing of goodness in a tiny bottle. And, it's amazing. That's one of the things I love.
I mean, this is one of the things, like I always going around telling people that everything that they have that they need is within them. Like you have whatever you need within you to do what you need to do. But in the same way, nature, because we are all connected, we're all one, nature has everything we need. We don't need
Totally.
to go around creating synthetic stuff, because nature has everything that we need to heal ourselves. We just haven't quite discovered it yet. There's so much wonderful research beginning to come back up about using natural things. Like, I was reading in the paper just this morning, that now the research around psilocybin and for treating depression is becoming really mainstream now. And it's like, well, they figured that back out in the 50s, and then somebody in the 60s came along and went, no, drugs are bad, chuck them all in the bin. And like, God, 50, 60 years later, we're coming back to it. But yes, everything that we need is there. I hope that this has really given hope to people who are suffering with mold toxicity and mold intolerance, and maybe even given somebody an idea that, oh, maybe that's what I'm suffering with, because I can imagine there's a lot of people. I think when I came across you were probably only the second person that I'd ever really talked to about this being a thing.
Yes.
So I'm hoping, and I like to think that I'm across most things, but I'm not really. But so I'm hoping that this has been a bit of an eye opener for quite a lot of people. So listen, I mean, if people are watching on YouTube, and these are all available on YouTube, you can see your beautiful poster behind you, A Magical Life. And I just want to say, I love your name, Magic. Were you christened Magic? Because I think that's just wonderful.
No, I wasn't.
Oh.
No, my grandfather helped me change my name.
But it's perfect. It's perfect. I love it. So listen, Magic, where can people find you? And what do you offer? Like, what's your offering when somebody comes to you with an issue? What's your offering? So just let's talk about that a little
So
bit.
we have alluded to it in this episode, and that's our root cause analysis, our very long intake form. And that's actually complimentary. So once you fill out the intake form, we can do a call on Zoom anywhere around the world and go through what your full history is. And if there's mold there, we'll find it. And the other thing, people can find all of that with our own podcast, with our blogs, with all of our bits and pieces at our website, which is www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. So the .au is very important, and it's holistic with a W. Everything's there. Reach out, say hi, say you've heard this podcast, and how can we help you?
Brilliant. Well, I'll put all the sort of in the links in the show notes as well. But thank you, Magic, for your time. It's been really interesting, and I'm hoping that it's been really helpful to some people as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.